YouTube, it's Tom back with another one for you. And this one here is continuation of cracking the code. This is 5. Cracking the code 3. This is the 5th video here. Getting into some of the fundamentals and getting into some of the details of different interactions that you may or may not have between your straw man and some of the other fictitious entities that may try to do business with it, right? So let's get right into this here. Let's get right into this shit. So because all involved interest parties are artificial persons, your role as man, woman in this scheme will be revealed shortly. But at this point in the discussion, you are inextricably linked with your all cap straw name. Your alter ego straw man is defined as a front, a third party put up in name only for the purpose of taking part in a transaction, i.e., a mere nominal party in a transaction. The legal term describing such an entity is stramanius homo, a Latin term defined as follows: a man of straw, one of no substance, put forward as bail for surety, Black's Law Dictionary, first edition. So a nominal party straw man can be very useful because its creator can then accomplish things in the name of the straw man that would not otherwise be permitted. Secretly acquire property, do business with one's enemies, etc. A creator always puts forth the straw man for self-serving purposes, and is normally the only one that knows the true nature of the straw man. Outsider parties in a transaction usually believe that the strawman party is unaffiliated with other parties in the transaction, thereby giving the creator the advantage of an extra man on the field. When your true name, written in accordance with the rules in English grammar and the prescriptions of law, is corrupted into an all capital letter format, a mutant strawman is created. The new all caps name is a legal entity, corporately colored, distinct from you, and is the only type of person, quote unquote, with whom government, courts, taxmen, banks, and corporations will, in fact, can do business with. If you do not believe this, just examine documents that you receive from these types of organizations: social security card, court records, credit cards, tax bills, permits, driver's licenses, passport, bank statements. All named entities are set in capitals exclusively, with the occasional exceptions of upper and lowercase abbreviations, initials, and then usually only in correspondence. When some corporate government entity is coming after you for payment, you will never see your true name listed as the account holder. Initials, letters only capitalized. In the caption of their legal briefs, only the all caps trade name of your straw man. Why? This is the only way that they can do business, and that is exactly and only what it is: business. Many grammar books and legal publications identify permissible methods for displaying proper names, one of which is the U.S. Government Style Manual, a Manual of Style 2000. So Chapter 17, quote-unquote, court work, spells out the examples acceptable ways of presenting names, 52 variations in all, and never once recommends an all-caps name format in court paperwork. Despite the conspicuous absence of such a mandate, the caption of every single federal and state, county, and city court brief without exception contains name and plaintiff and defendant, petitioner, and respondent, etc. in an all-capital letter format exclusively. Since there is no legal authority requiring that proper nouns and names be set in capital letters, why is this practice permitted, indeed enforced, excluding all others? So why is that? So that's a little strange. But that's the only way that they can do business, is by making reference to your all caps name. That's what it is. So the people of the world have been politically and financially ravaged because they do not know their alter ego, public persona, strawman. Bankrupt governments covertly create and use such strawmen, all caps trade names, actually for the purpose of doing business with said trade names, without ever openly disclosing the practice and siphoning wealth from otherwise sovereign men and women, conveying such proceeds into the coffers of their creditors, the masters in the Federal Reserve, IMF syndicate, after redemption, i.e. after reclaiming your intellectual property, all caps straw name, your all caps trade name, you can use the straw man for your own benefit rather than endure continued economic exploitation and concomitant economic subjugation associated therewith. Analyzing the obvious. A landmark Supreme Court case, 1795, defines government succinctly. Governments are corporations, inasmuch as every government is an artificial person, an abstraction, and a creature of the mind only. And it's true. I mean, the government isn't even a thing. It only fucking exists on paper. If you want to be real, the only shit that's real is the people and the men and women fucking pretending to be a fucking government. Like, think about it. They have to put on a costume and wear a fucking name tag. Bro, that's not who you are. You're fucking pretending to be somebody else. Otherwise, why the fuck would you have a costume on? Cut it out. So a government can interface only with the artificial persons. The imaginary, having neither actuality nor substance, is foreclosed from creating and attaining parity with the tangible. The legal manifestation of this is that no government, as well as any law, agency, aspect, court thereof, can concern itself with anything other than corporate artificial persons and contract between them. One might immediately dispute this statement by pointing out that people are acted upon by agents of government and are regulated, fined, imprisoned, plundered, brutalized, and killed by government officials every day. True, but let us step back from the fray and take in the whole macrocosm that we call modern civilization. It is fairly obvious that a thing created can never be greater than the creator that brought it into existence. Please follow along with the symbolism. So God created man and rules over man. Therefore, man can never be greater than and never can rule over God. 2. Man created government, an artificial entity, as a service, facility, slave. Therefore, government can never be greater than and can never rule over man. 3. Government then created corporations and corporately colored entities, also artificial persons as slaves, for the purpose of ruling over them, collecting revenue. Therefore, a corporation, corporately colored entity, can never be greater than and can never rule over the government that brought it into existence. Therefore, a corporation, corporately colored entity, can never be greater than, rule over the government can never be greater than, or rule over man can never be greater than, or rule over God. Despite the logic of this example, and as pointed out above, anyone can look around and see that the above hierarchy of rule is certainly not the case in America today. And likewise, and on the bottom here we have the definition of redemption: the act of redeeming, or the state of being redeemed, to recover from captivity or total loss or alienation, hence to rescue in any way, deliver ransom, as to redeem goods from a pawnbroker, to redeem a nation. All right, so that's the redemption process there that we're speaking on. So definitely interesting stuff there. So almost everywhere, simple observation tells us that government rules over people, not the reverse. What is missing from the foregoing equation is the same thing that is missing from your awareness about your life, the existence of your strawman trade name, plus your obligations coupled therewith. In the above example, you, the man, woman, are described in categories 1 and 2. Your all caps and leggy strawman falls in category 3, but till now you are not even aware of its existence at any level. For purposes of ruling over flesh and blood people, such had to be somehow corralled into the artificial sphere, the only realm that government, being the slave of the sovereign man and woman that created it, can dictate over. So here's the two-part governmental artifice that facilitated the transformation of government. Number 1, corrupted the true names of sovereign men and women into corporately colored mirror image, all capital letter trade names, at the time of falsely required registration of the biological property via the birth certificate, and omitted informing people on the creation of the newly created ens legis corporate franchise, citizen of the United States trade name. And then 2, deceived the flesh and blood men and women of the sovereign constituency to unwittingly, voluntarily contracting as surety for the trade name, concealing from the victims their new status, but also heartlessly enforcing the new obligations without benefit of explanation. Surety, a person who is primarily liable for the payment of another debt of the performance of another's obligation. Okay, so do you want to be the surety for some shit that is fucking fiction? I'm all set with that. So the device and practice under 1 above, committed via a officially authorized subterfuge known as legal fiction, opens the door so government actors can literally pretend a false reality into existence and then act on it without any obligation of notifying anyone about it. Under 2, actors in government have secretly created contracts of suretyship. So you see how that shit works there? Shit is crazy. So let me read some of this stuff in the bottom. It's just tiny. So one of the only two inhabited jurisdictions on the planet where this is not the case of any tiny Sark, 1 square mile island nation of the English Channel, and a societal paradigm most closely approximating utopia on this third orb from the dwarf star Sol, population 550. Uh, yeah, so I mean that apparently everywhere in the world, everywhere in the world, fucking, is kind of basically the same. The same that there's only one location that has a population of 550 people that are not subject to that shit. So let's go to the next slide here. Okay. So, but without informing prospective sureties, thereby establishing an ongoing Machiavellian scheme whereby a sovereign man woman can be treated as the equivalent of his or her inert, inanimate, artificial paper and ink corporally colored counterpart, the all cap straw man. Once the mark intended victim in a confidence game has been suckered into the contract, suretyship is defined as the legal relation that arises when one party assumes liability for a debt, default, or other failing of a second party. The liability of both parties begins simultaneously. In other words, under a contract of suretyship, as surety becomes a part to the principal obligation. Suretyship is further clarified as follows. The contract of suretyship may be entered into by all persons who are surety juries, which is your legal lawful capacity, and capable of entering into other contracts. Bouvier's Law Dictionary. So surety jury, latter of his own right, possessing full societal. So this is a definition of surety jury. Of his own right, possessing full societal and civil right, not under any legal disability or the power of another or guardianship. A surety is equally liable for the obligations of the principal he is bonded with. However, as you can see in Bouvier's definition, only a surety jury man or woman is capable of becoming a surety. Examining the definition of surety jury more closely, you can discover that this is an artfully watered down camouflage term for the legal equivalent of a sovereign of his own right, not under the power of another. Suretyship. What this means is that in the eyes of the law, only surety jury sovereign, self-governing, responsible man woman possesses and can exercise full right and power and is legally qualified and eligible for being hoodwinked, conned, deceived, bamboozled, swindled, shafted, cheated, hornswoggled, defrauded, scammed, duped, tricked, trapped, and suckered into becoming a surety for his intangible artificial mirror image, paper and ink straw man, all caps trade name. Hence, the following inescapable conclusion is this. Where you're not such a sovereign self-governing surety jury responsible party in the first place, you could have never become a surety for anyone. Anything else, all caps straw man, anytime thereafter. Thus, we have uncovered the answer for this apparent conundrum cited above. Government ruling over man. A sovereign man or woman has the sovereign right and power contracting away his sovereign rights and power if he or she in his or her sovereign capacity so chooses, otherwise legally known as unconscionable bargain. But business as usual for the legal masters of the world, as your self-appointed rulers need on self-appointed rulers. Motherfuckers are ridiculous. So let me get this time slide written down. Self-appointed rulers, huh? So, minutest justification for inflicting the full fury of their wrath upon you. Until recently, all such contracts were secret, invisible, and unknown for everyone but the man-haters that devised them and the hell-bounds that enforced them. In your particular circumstance, the artificial all-cap straw name is the principal, and you, the living, breathing flesh, blood, man or woman, the unwitting surety. The underlying con beneath the con. Likely you are following this essay and have a good grasp of the concepts set forth so far and are interested in carrying forward and gaining more understanding about how these things apply in your life and what you can do about it. But let us digress for a moment. A great number of Americans have figured out that the all caps corruption of their true name is somehow being used against them, and we shall thoroughly address that issue momentarily. However, there is an even subtler con underway concerning the name, and it has been so well designed and orchestrated that almost no one has ever conceived of the possibility of its existence. Although knowledge of this particular stratagem, which is a strategy, is not necessary for application of the practical remedies contained herein, there is no surety in existence that cannot benefit from its revelation. No matter the degree of understanding, it reflects the very essence, basis, and nature of your position in American society. Let us take two entities, one actual, the man-woman known as the king-queen of the state of Great Britain, and one artificial, the state of the United States. A sub-jurisdiction under the power of the crown, a front for the legal masters of the world, and examine a peculiar right claimed by each. The sovereign in Great Britain must consent before he or she can be sued in the royal courts, and it's the same thing here too as well. So, the United States, the proclaimed sovereign on the side of the Atlantic, must consent before it can become the subject of a lawsuit in its own courts. There we go with the fucking rooster. So the sovereign, whether the term be used with respect to a state or the chief ruler of one, is accorded an immunity from suit in courts. This doctrine obtains both in England and in this country. It is a general rule of the sovereign cannot be sued in his own court without his consent from the definition of sovereign, Bouvier's 8th edition. So everything is an offer essentially. So you can fucking accept it or reject the offer. It's always up to you. So how is it that any such claim of right can be made by these parties? Why must we obtain permission before suing either of them? The answer for these questions reveals the tactical source of the current physical, mental, and spiritual dilemma facing mankind. Appellation, a rather obscure word in the English language, is defined as follows. Appealing, the action of appealing to a higher court or authority against the decision of an inferior one, the appeal so made. So apparently that's the definition of that. This fucking rooster's annoying, bro. Bad timing, motherfucker. So, group of appeal, title, claim, the action of appealing or calling, entreaty or earnest address, calling, designation. Number 3, the action of calling by name. 4, a designation, name, or title given to a particular person or thing, to a class, a descriptive or connotative name, a name or title, the act of naming or calling. Appellation is spelled identically in both French and English. In French, the word means appealing, calling, naming, appellation. Though this word has come our way through French, its ultimate origin is Latin. So the word accost appears prominently in the Latin origin of the appellation, as defined as to speak to first, address, greet, manner or act of addressing, greeting. So this and other French words made their way into the English speaking world, courtesy of Norman French attorneys accompanying William of Normandy, aka Duke of Normandy, and William the Conqueror following the inglorious Battle of Hastings. The corrupted French dialect of the Normans was then immediately installed in the legal system. The Englishmen unlearned the new language, where thereby effectively foreclosed from the adequate legal defense of themselves with the property against the tyrant king's esquires in the courts, and so experienced economic annihilation. As with many other impediments in the language of the legal system, Norman French attorneys are at the bottom of the obscurity of the word appellation as well. So, of the first 4 definitions of appellation, the Oxford English Dictionary, herein OED, the world's most respected lexical authority, we are told that 3 of them are obsolete. The only valid one being the action of appealing to a higher court of authority against the decision of an inferior one. The appeal so made, even though the so-called obsolete usages are complete in harmony with the modern definition. The reason proper usage of this word is labeled obsolete by the King's Esquires on staff OED, the reason this word is not defined in law dictionaries, the reason most people believe, let's see what the fuck. The reason most people believe that an appellation is nothing but an archaic synonym for a name, the reason people generally have a reverse conceptual understanding of the meaning of this obscure term is the same reason that Big Brother calls himself or itself a sovereign and you a subject, and why you must first obtain permission from the crown state before using political subjugation and compelled allegiance. So, as can be seen from the etymologies and the definitions above, appellate as Latin root for and appealing to or calling out, pronouncing a name or accosting, speaking to, addressing, greeting. The idea of a name is secondary derivative aspect. Consulting the original Latin meaning and the later French usage, the essence of the appellation, the action of making an appeal, is an act of getting another's attention. One makes contact with another by entering an appellation. Even when considered as a name, an appellation is not a crippling ball and chain claim to your existence as a sovereign. Your appellation is merely your signal that someone is reaching out and desires to communicate with you. This is why the so-called sovereigns, the Crown and the United States, require that their approval be obtained before a suit is initiated. They evaluate the appellation and decide if they want it. Sadly, most people have identified with their name and believe that when it is called, they are obligated in responding as requested or ordered through use of the name somehow exerted control over their freedom or locomotion and the disposition of their personal property. This is wrong-headed, but those who control the publishing of textbooks, newspapers, and dictate our government, the media, and the legal system have nevertheless successfully inculcated this infirmity into our collective consciousness. So basically what they're doing is fucking programming you with their movies, with the newspapers, with the news and things like that, to make you think that you have some obligation to entertain these motherfuckers at any point that they bet at their beck and call. Yeah, right, bro. A name is a piece of property and can never be copyrighted. You are not your property, not your name. An appellation differs from a name and that it is different from that it originates with another. It is an earnest plea for communication. The so-called obsolete definition in the OED is the true modern meaning of the term. The action of appealing or calling, entreaty or earnest address. Others use an appellation for addressing you, accosting you, calling out to you, making an appeal to you, and getting your attention. And what you do following such appeal is entirely your own choosing. This is as true as your neighbor down the street as it is for the IRS agent. When someone makes an appellation for the purpose of taking legal action against the crown takes note of the appellation and issues a decision. Any sovereign must agree that he can be sued and that he is liable for another before another can proceed against him. And this is true for any sovereign, including you, irrespective of any lack of awareness on your own part of your own omnipotence. Okay? So what they're saying here is that you have the power to dictate whether or not you're going to be sued and how to respond to any of these demands, right? Because they always send these letters in the form of a demand, but what they really are is administrative scam artists. So when you understand the administrative process, you understand exactly what it is that they're doing and how they're going about this bullshit. Okay, so you can simply tell them. I mean, there's a bunch of options that you can use, but essentially what this is saying is that you do have options and you have no obligation. You don't. All right, so that's the big thing about learning about all this and why this information is crucial to understanding the correlation between you and your straw man and some of the aspects of filing the UCC1. And what it actually does is creates the separation between you as a private living, breathing individual and your commercial conduit, which is your all cap straw name. All right, so it is a game of chess. Stop playing checkers with these assholes. That's what I got for you for now. Until we meet again. Me and the rooster out here.